Well, I'm Denise Stevens. I'm a university librarian, and I want to welcome all of you to our talk this afternoon. And just spend a minute sharing our excitement about being a part of these kinds of programs here at the library. One of our goals here in the near future and beyond is for the library to really be a crossroads on campus for not just intellectual stuff, books and data and other types of content, but a place where people can engage scholarship and engage ideas. And for that reason, this is an example of what we hope to be many, many more such occasions here in the library, and we're very happy to have you. We're also excited to have today's lecturer to talk about the art of social movements, so to speak, and how that how art itself has become a factor in how we understand how our society is changing and evolving. And so that being said, I'm very happy to have been invited to welcome you here today, and more importantly to kick off what I hope to be a number of lectures along these lines over the next few years. Okay? Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much, and I will turn this over to the day's officials. Thank you. Okay.
And my name is Salvadoreño, and I'm one of the lesser officials, so I'm not too official, but I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm glad that we're all here. CIMA, the California Ethnic and Multicultural Archives, is the program that I had here in the library. It's part of Special Collections Department. My boss is David Toybert right there, holding up the wall, and he's overseeing all the special collections. And we're absolutely delighted that you're here, that we can be able to collaborate in this manner. And that and for us, for CIMA to be a co-organizer in this is it's really a great privilege, and to curate the exhibit that, if you haven't seen it yet, it's on the first floor of the library downstairs. Favianna Rodriguez, Art of the Activist Imagination. Okay, so the work of CIMA, which we use as an abbreviation, is that what we do is we preserve and then we make accessible the work of the archives and the manuscripts of all of these underrepresented groups of color in California, and we've been going at it now for close to 30 years. And this includes literature and theater and music and art. But in my mind, CIMA's heartbeat, if you will, has always been our rich holdings of graphic materials, social and political graphic art that speaks to us about the human condition and how far we have yet to go as a people to see that there is equality, there is justice, there's equal opportunity for all. Okay? Now, Favianna's powerful work, it builds on and it continues this tradition precisely because we're quite frankly, we're not at the mountaintop yet, right? We still have a ways to go, and her posters, they really hit us right at home. Posters like, housing is a human right, stop the war on women. So something that I think that really sets Favianna apart is that she's fully engaged in the digital media, that she is really technically savvy as an artist and also as a digital person, that she uses her art and she uses social media in a very effective manner to make those connections that will actually help drive the social change that she is really committed to seeing through. I'd like to also say that Favianna has so much to offer, and she gave us so much to choose from in order to put up this fabulous exhibition, and we only had room for like 14 items, and so we had to be really selective as to what was going to go on the wall. And so as we made our selections for the show, there were literally, like I said, there were hundreds to choose from, but they included, in the end, they included artwork on the environment, on racial violence, on immigrant rights, human rights, on women's reproductive rights, and also on the anti-war movement. Okay? So when we were hanging the show downstairs, I couldn't help but I noticed right away how she was already connecting with our students even before they had a chance to even meet her, like you are right here. The fact is that I noticed that there were like 2 or 3 students who were clicking away with their iPhones, taking pictures of the wall, of the items as they were being hung on the wall, before everything was ready, I could, like 3 students were taking pictures, click, click, click. And so I asked a few, what is it that, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about? And, well, I heard, there are some expletives, and I won't delete the expletives, but they're awesome, inspiring, we need to see this, that kind of thing. So, okay, that's it from me. Dr. Inés Casillas is here from the Chicana and Chicano Studies Department, key organizer for this event. I'm really proud of her for being able to pull all this together and for allowing us to be able to work with her in the department and with Favianna to be able to pull this off. So anyways, welcome. She's going to introduce you officially to Favianna. Thank you so much.
I welcome everybody for being here. If you guys want to maybe move a little bit farther in towards the center of the back wall, I might be able to see a little bit more of her prints. I want to thank all the key collaborators who didn't flinch across campus. All they did was express sheer enthusiasm when approached to make this visit happen. Rebecca Metzger here in the University Library, Sal, obviously, all the librarians who actually, in an incredible turnaround time, dedicated, I think, a day and a half just to putting her prints up downstairs. I really appreciate that labor. Teresa Peña, who organized all the nitty-gritty details. Holly Unra, I don't know if she's here. Thank you so much for helping me with all my grant applications, for bringing her here. I appreciate that. Maida Hurtado and Dad Luisa, chair, for being so supportive. She always cheers from the sidelines, but she's such a critical component of every event we have in our department. And of course, William Calvo and Sebastian Ferrada for all their help. So that's all my institutional thank you so much. Favianna Rodriguez is a printmaker and a digital artist, activist, and teacher that's based in Oakland, California. Her bold posters and digital art deal with social issues such as immigration, global politics, economic injustice, reproductive justice, patriarchy, racism, and war. Whether handmade or print en masse, her prints reflect the impact people can make on their conditions. Rodriguez has founded several organizations dedicated to training communities and artists within their own communities how to do political graphics and murals and their internet, how to use that for social change. Over the years, her bold, beautiful artwork often manages to articulate, at least for me, the knot in my stomach. Like when Sonia Sotomayor was going through her confirmation hearings. She immediately came out with a poster. She articulates the rage in my gut when there was a committee of male congresspeople that were in charge of making decisions for women's bodies. Her work reminds me that the environment, like this land, is my responsibility, that climate change demands real attention. Her craft inspires me and others to fight the good fight, and her visual outlines of people has made me realize that I do not need an image of a fist in the air to motivate me. I just need a strong image outline of a woman. We welcome Favianna Rodriguez to UCSB.
Everybody, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool, and also it's really important that you can see the art. So is everyone in a place where they can see it, or do you want to take a moment to move around? If you can't, there's a chair right here. Actually, if you want to, you can move another chair here. There's room here too. It's just a whole nother experience when you can see the art, really. So I'll just let people move. You guys sure you guys are cool back there?
Yeah. Some people want to sit on the floor and talk. There's room too.
Yeah, there's room too. And then also, let me move this a little bit so that you can see the screen better. Oh no, that's good. Okay, cool, great. Well, thanks so much for welcoming me. And I'm going to be showing you some examples of my work and just kind of what I'm involved in, so especially some of the recent campaigns. I really encourage you to tweet anything you find inspiring. Just tag me when you tweet. My ID is @Favianna, and that's with a V and 2 N's. And if you're going to take photos on Instagram, tag me as well. It's Favianna01. And just really, I really encourage you to just share on social media. I'm not going to be offended if you're looking at your phone. It's all good. I really think it's important for us to get these ideas out there. So with that, let me go ahead and start. I'm recovering from a little cough, so I might be coughing throughout the presentation. But I wanted to start with this image, which is really kind of encapsulates my mission as an artist, which is that artists should fight for justice and peace. And really that, you know, artists are often the change makers, the people who are introducing the most radical and controversial ideas. And we really have to kind of own the power that we have, whether we're dancers, performers, DJs, MCs. We really have the power to shape culture. And culture is where a lot of the political fights are being fought out. So, let's see. Oh, let's see if it...
Make it up.
Oh, maybe if I go here? There we go. Okay. So, okay. So then if I keep going, oh yeah, perfect. Great. So this is a portrait that I did of myself in 2006. And on the left, I'm represented wearing white, and I have a white eye bandage over my face. And on the right, I'm wearing black. And what I really wanted to make a statement is that when I was growing up, and probably when many of you were growing up, I was surrounded by nothing except images of white beauty. And whiteness was all around me. It was put up as the ideal. And women of color were rarely on the cover of magazines. To this day, we are rarely getting major roles in films. Often, the way we're marketed to is all about us needing to be something that we're not, or needing to meet this ideal. And I thought it was like really a war that I was having with myself, because I would wonder, you know, I would be, when I was very young, I didn't like my parents to speak to me in Spanish. I felt really weird about why I had curly hair, or why I was like going through puberty way faster than all the like white girls. And I just, it was just, I was having, I didn't have the tools to understand what was happening to me, and that was because I was not surrounded with empowering content that expressed my condition. And so for me, being an artist is about making work that is empowering and really shows the humanity and the reality of who we are and what we face as women of color, as people of color, and celebrating that, and really being raw, being myself, embracing that, you know, who I was and who I am as a woman of color, and all the contradictions, and a decolonial process of letting all that go. And you know, if you look at, there was a recent article in the New York Times that talked about how with, you know, Latinos now at 50 million, the amount, the children, you know, most of the, many states around the country now have a majority of young Latino students, and those kids, what are they reading? Like, we are not filling content fast enough to really educate an empowered, you know, new generation. And that, and this is how racism plays out. This is white supremacy, that we don't see ourselves, even though our numbers might be increased. Do you see, I just saw the Les Miserables movie, I just saw Zero Dark 30, what else did I see? Where were the Latino characters? I'm just like thinking, really? I'm not even Asian characters hardly. It's just, we're completely invisible. We have to look at culture as a way to break through that. This is another one of my pieces. I'm a printmaker, meaning that I work in the paper medium, and the reason I do is because paper and posters have the ability to exist in many different locations. And I've never really liked to do like a one painting thing, because I felt that was almost like too much value on one piece of art. And instead I wanted to do work that could be spread out everywhere, that could exist in many different locations. And that is why printmaking is my key form. And now more and more technology. This is a piece, Climate Crisis is Real, Climate Silence is Criminal. As you remember, you know, Sandy happened after the elections. It was after the elections, right?
Yes.
No, before. That's right, before. Sandy happened before the elections. Previous to that, in none of the debates were the candidates talking about climate change. On the contrary, they were talking about coal mining and drilling. Do you guys remember that? Just like the priorities they were laying out. And it was just ridiculous, because not one of them mentioned climate change, and also this whole concept of climate silence, meaning that they refuse to talk about it, is actually something criminal against humanity, because we are not recognizing what's happening before our eyes. Then Sandy happened. This is the piece I did immediately after Sandy, and just showing that this is here. This is a new reality that is going to affect everything from like our urban infrastructure to how we take care of the people with most need, and really understanding and putting out this idea that climate silence is criminal. right? And so in a lot of my work, I think about, well, what's happening? Like, what are the debates being discussed at a national level? Sandy provided an opportunity for all of us to talk about climate change, like we had never talked about it before, right? And so this is, you know, when thinking about how my art can impact, I really think about what is happening in the news and how can we reframe it? Because the way that corporate America, the right wing, and even the Democrats are framing things, meaning how they are presenting the lens through which you see it, is extremely problematic, and I'll talk a little bit about that more. And in fact, more and more, both parties are moving to the center. And that is why I believe that as artists, we need to shift the frame over to the left. Because as they move to the center, we need to keep moving the discussion over and over and over again. This piece, Green is Not White, I did this because, again, sustainability and environmentalism has always been framed as like a white thing. And in reality, you know, climate change it disproportionately affects people of color all throughout the world. And who's in the most toxic jobs? Migrants, right? You know, the meat industry, one of the most toxic jobs in the United States, migrants. Over 85% migrants working in that industry. Agriculture, right? And so really thinking, okay, well, green is not white. Green is actually for the betterment of all of us. And thinking about how we were talking about that, especially in the context of migrant workers, because so often, even when you think about an organic apple, your assessment of it has not taken, many of our assessment is not about the working conditions of who produced that apple. It's all about the apple and whether or not it's been exposed to pesticides, but we haven't expanded it to think about who is growing it and what are they exposed to, and how is what we eat actually you know, really buying into this system that treats migrants as second-class citizens. This is a piece I did around Prop 37, the GMO labeling law. And again, you know, I think that I don't know if you guys saw that campaign. It was, I mean, you hardly had any Black or Latino or Asian spokespeople. It was a very white campaign. And it was actually, that's too bad, because I would, you know, I talked to them and I would say, you know, where you need to kind of create the shift. I mean, think about it. Who is the market that's most emerging in the United States right now? It's Latinos. Like we have like unprecedented power because we are spending. We're spending money, like, you know, and migrants are spending money as well. And so how do we need to think about how we're addressing these issues, like the GMO labeling, which lost, but it also lost by a very small percentage. And I don't know if you all know roughly about what the GMO labeling law was here in California. Do you guys know what the specifics about that were? It was about our right to know whether or not a food product contained GMOs. And in the United States, we do not have that right. In Europe, in Japan, if something has GMOs, it'll say this has a genetically modified organism. Who is behind genetically modified organisms? Biotech, big agribusiness. And the whole kind of space of genetic modification, as you may know, is putting farmers completely, you know, is exploiting farmers, is erasing the ability for farmers to survive. So for me, the GMO fight really is, you know, and not to mention how much companies like Monsanto have displaced, you know, Mexicanos because of NAFTA. So really, if you kind of dig, GMOs is about the consolidation of food production, and that the many people like myself believe in something called biodiversity, which means that we don't just need to manufacture corn and soy and, you know, oranges and potatoes. We need to have a diverse diet so that we don't we don't suck out everything from the land, you know, and that it's called biodiversity. So this poster was really popular. I want to just stop for a moment to really frame how exactly this can work in a very pragmatic sense, because many times people say, well, what can artists do? Like, how does art really change anything, and why should we care what artists do or think, or why should we invest in them? So this is a chart that Van Jones came up with, and on the top it says elites, and on the bottom it says masses. On the left it says action, and on the right it says ideas. So let's look at this for a second. So the inside game, which is definitely made up of the elites, right? The inside game is designing our laws. The people in DC, the lobbyists, they are the ones who are every day working to design laws. And what I mean by action is things that happen right away, right? Senate bills. You know, when the legislature here in California is trying to figure out, well, how much are we going to raise student fees, right? That is an actionable item. And many times the inside game and the outside game are both thinking in context of wins or losses, right? So they're saying, oh, you know what? We're going to lower the, we're going to increase the student fees, or we're going to cut healthcare services from all these state workers, right? They're thinking in actionable items. The outside game, which many of us are a part of, is like Occupy, the rallies, the marches that are putting pressure on the inside game to act. Very important. Grassroots power, which is something that is about the masses. Grassroots power is how you shift. You can change laws, right? You need that. You need the masses to be telling the elites, yo, what the heck are you doing? We need you to pass this law. Then if you look at the space of ideas, well, who's working in the space of ideas? Academics, policy think tanks, right? They are, you see all these books getting written about the Black Power movement, right? It's years later. They're not so concerned with action. They're concerned with ideas. How do we learn from the past, etc. Many times these think tanks are also working against us. They're looking into nuclear energy. You have companies, big oil, investing in UC Berkeley, for example, and they are definitely funding certain kinds of think tanks. But then, who is operating in the space of ideas that is speaking to the masses? This is where artists are doing, this is where artists really matter. And it's that, you know, an artist operates often, if somebody writes a novel and that like changes you in a certain way, how do you quantify that? Like, how do you say, oh, I read this novel, I'm going to go vote yes on this? It doesn't work like that. You know, a novel and a good song and a good piece of art is going to change your ideas over time. And it's also going to speak to the masses, because art, I think, is the best when it really touches a lot of people. And so if you look at this quadrant, you will see that art is a very necessary thing, because the artists are the ones who need to advance the ideas. And yes, artists also need to support campaigns and actions. Of course we do. But we also need to think big. Because if we're only thinking about action, then we're only being reactive. We're only thinking, oh, SB 1070 passed. We need an SB 1070 poster. You know, they're going to cut a farm bill. Let's get Bruce Springsteen to come perform, right? When instead, what about when you are creating things that speak to the heart, that really speak to ideas? And so with that, you know who gets all the funding? Is those three. People are just like, what, artists, you know, how are you going to change social, what are you going to do to change society? And this is a lot of what my work is to getting people to understand that this is a very valuable but under-resourced area of our work. So with that said, we'll jump back into the art, and I'm going to explain some of the examples of how this plays out in real policy. This piece, Fight Patriarchy, you know, people think, oh, we have been in the age of women's liberation, and, you know, there's all these opportunities for women. You know that in Europe they started applying quotas so that women can be represented in political parties? Just because if you look at who's representing us, you will see there's very few women. And some of the stats that I included on this poster, for example, is that of the 1.3 billion people in the world living on less than $1 per day, 70% are women. And that the people still making decisions about global policy and economic policy are men. And not just that, that's the sex trade is the largest grossing industry in the world, the sex trade. And you know that what that means. It means human trafficking. It means women being used and exploited in the sexual market. And so we have to look at that when we're thinking about, well, what is the state of women? That what does it really mean when we are still in an age when the most money industry is an exploitative one on our lives? And so I wanted to make this piece because women are paying the price for men in political power. And let's really think about it like that, because that's how it's playing out. This piece, I'm a Slut, I did this piece and this whole series of pieces that I did around reproductive justice, and overall also about how we talk about sex. And this is all, again, this goes back to framing and who is framing the debate. So, do you remember when Rush Limbaugh on his show, he said, "Oh, those are a bunch of sluts." He said something of that nature, and there was a huge outcry on it. The first thing I asked myself was, okay, what are the left's values around sex? Because the right wing has a very clear agenda on sex. You can't have premarital sex. If you're having any kind of same sex, it's wrong. Abortion is wrong in their eyes. And all these aspects of sex, they don't even want to talk about masturbation. Many times they're pushing abstinence-only programs. And they are very clear on their agenda. In fact, if you step out of line, and if you're an elected official, and you get caught, I don't know, making out with someone, or engaging with a sex worker, for example, or even, you know, masturbating in public, just say you're a politician, the right wing will take you down. And you've seen this. They will take you down because they have set the frame of what values around sex are acceptable and which ones are not. And we on the left have not done that. We actually allow people to get thrown under the bus, and a lot of that is by us being silent. We're buying into those norms. And so, you know, I work with folks in, like, you know, Planned Parenthood and, you know, Choice USA, all these national groups, and they're still talking about, for example, abortion only in the context of health. Right? And they're just saying, the stories they push out are saying, this woman has to have an abortion because if she doesn't, she's going to die. Or this woman has to have an abortion because she got raped. It's always in these very dramatic contexts, instead of us saying, you know what, we have the right to have an abortion, plain and simple. And actually, a lot of women are having sex. There's a lot of unprotected sex happening, and we still believe in the right to have an abortion. And so I made this poster as a statement around the word slut and how loaded of that word is, and how instead, if we think, well, you know what, why don't we just say we're sluts? I mean, really, what is a slut? Like, how many men do you have to sleep with to be a slut? And if so, who dictates that? And why? Why do those kind of these things exist for women? And that's why I wanted to, you know, make this piece. I made a whole series of slut power pieces, and you guys have seen the success of the slut walks. Do you guys know what the slut walks are? They're basically these walks where many times women are walking naked, or they're dressed in very provocative clothes, and they're called slut walks, and they are walking and they say, this does not give you the right to rape me. And it's a straight up statement on all the preconceived ideas about women and how much we buy into them by our silence or by just going along. This piece, politicians off my poontang, my uterus is mine. Really, again, because really, I mean, I was just listening to this stuff, and I'm just like, man, they really just need to stop talking about my pussy. They really do, because they are really trying to make laws that are really, I mean, think about it. They're all up in there. They're trying to be like, you know, and then you're just like, really, like, just get off, you know, just step off. You know what's crazy is, like, I was really surprised that none of the national feminist groups